So in thinking of who you're in bed with, you've got to understand, what did the counterpart do to get you in bed? So I suppose, what are the pressure tactics that are involved in it? And once you're there, are you enjoying this process of working with them? So even in the process of negotiation, is there a kind of underlying sense of resentment, negative emotions, and a feeling or a sense of powerlessness? Because this is a very big thing, because it's a precursor of what you could potentially be ending up with in the long term. And this could leave you with huge sentiments of resentment, and might not prove an optimal outcome for what you're wanting to do, right? Quite often, I think you got to have a walk away strategy as well. And if somebody's constantly pressurizing you into something, you got to be careful about when you say enough, or when you say, how do we refocus this energy, refocus the conversation or this negotiation, and bring it back to where your initial kind of intention was. And so be careful also when you close the negotiation that you actually have a walkaway alternative, so almost like a plan B, or you've thought about, well, okay, if this closes, I'm going to go to X. So this is all very important, and takes you back to the entry of what I was beginning to explain, was know the context, know the situation, know what you're dealing with, and know the different kind of variables that you have at play. I think it's very, very important as well as creatives that we bring a form of creative thinking to the situation. So we're not thinking in terms of binary terms. So it's not just a yes or no, because this can be very counterproductive. Quite clearly also, creatives are their biggest enemies, because they are immersed in their work, which in its form is an extension of their ego. And as creators, we're very protective, we're very territorial around our work and our practice. So this then becomes a barrier to a successful outcome, because quite often you are negotiating with people who have a different set of skill, or different understanding or perspective of what your work is and what they want to extract out of it, or the benefit they want to extract out of you as a person. So generally in business, it's quite left-brained, and they would be thinking bottom line, profit, sales, sales. Whereas as a creative, you're not thinking that. You're talking about work, refinement, growth. There's an authenticity, and there's this voice that has to be credible behind it. And this level of compromise is something that you definitely don't, you quite kind of anti. But actually, in some way or other, for you to engage in a commercial world, you also have to play by some of their rules as well. But it's always important for you to understand this is not a yes or no kind of negotiation. You've got to be flexible. So flexibility on both sides, as much as you wanting the person on the other side to understand you, understand your work, understand your vision, where you want to be or what you want from a financial perspective, you've also got to understand what they want out of it. And as long as you're clear with that, you don't really necessarily end up with issues around resentment and stuff like that. I think very interesting is looking at what are the things in the process of negotiation which are links that you can bring into the work, into the space of negotiation. So this is very important. What value adds can you bring into this space? So can you talk about perhaps an upcoming idea, project that you've been working on, that you own, intellectual property, relationships that you forged with other institutions, partners, brands? All of those things are important. And can any of those people be pivotal in what you're doing now currently with the person that you're negotiating with. So, to give an example is if you say to an agent, hey, I've been working on a collection of work, here is what it is, it's in association with another brand or government institution or NGO, it's going to have a huge amount of impact and I'm about to do these things, but I've also partnered maybe with the UN or, whichever body it might be. This might add impetus to your negotiation because the person on the other side is thinking, wow, there are all these amazing things which are in the future, but they could add a huge amount of kind of gravitas to me concluding a deal with this person in front of me. And so that's very important. I mean, as a fashion person, for instance, you would say, things that affect negotiations in terms of agent stocking your clothing is, hey, I've just been awarded this prize, I've been nominated for this, or I'm working in a collaboration with XYZ. So these things all add because somehow or the other there's more PR involved, and the more PR you have, and you become top of mind, and with being top of mind, you're creating a product or you're creating a service or a brand that's desirable or wanted. I think you also have to, quite often we don't think about is the timing of negotiations. And quite often this is very pivotal to the success of things. So what is the market telling you? What is the economy telling you? Where is the demand coming from? Is your art or your form of art, your form of creativity, something which is desirable at the moment? Are people buying it, collecting it? Are people wanting to represent it? And this can be a very difficult thing because quite often we have something which we are very passionate about, but the rest of the world isn't necessarily passionate about. For many years, people were thinking, could we be buying photographs as art? People still having that question actually, but it's now commanding a price, it's got value, and there's precedent. And so precedent is very, very important for you to understand when you're negotiating things as well. Because in the area that you're negotiating, you've got to understand, were there any precedents set before this? So understanding that makes you very strong, because you can always say, no, this is not quite true. I'm not prepared to offer that because you've offered XYZ, that percentage, or this is how this transaction went by, or I've done this in the past and this is not the benchmark in terms of where we should be starting off or what you should be offering me. So this is very important. The timing is super important because quite often things can be cyclical and people have different flavors. So this year maybe ceramics are huge, next year maybe they're not big, maybe sculptures are, maybe installations are. So things change, and in fashion it's the same thing. Skirts the season, dresses the season, polka dots this one season, whatever. We don't operate in vacuums. And so I can speak in fashion, for instance, we work on trends. So, it's not a coincidence that once every season, so maybe all of us are doing polka dots. It's because we follow trend. Art might be far more unique in terms of each creative is doing what they choose to do. But still, they're dictated to by a market and what a market wants at that particular time. And until their time comes along, they might not be as successful. And so these are very important things to know if you're going in and you're negotiating, selling your work. What is the market value? What is the market wanting? And maybe I should hold back on some work. Maybe I shouldn't be selling everything at the same time. So timing is really everything.